सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततत्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। So let us chant. Here's my book. Let us chant some verses from the 7th chapter. Chant number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Six verses starting with verse number 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so verse number 4 of the 7th chapter is Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayuhu, etc. So let's chant. You can just follow after me. Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayuhu, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayuhu, Khammano Buddhi Revacha, Ahankara iti yamme, Ahankara iti yamme, Bhinna Prakriti Rashtadhaya, Bhinna Prakriti Rashtadha, Bhinna Prakriti excuse me, Apareyam itastvanyam, Apareyastvanyam, Prakritim Vidhi me param, Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho, Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho, Yayedam Dharyate Jagat, Etat Yonini Bhutani, Etat Yonini Bhutani, Sarvani Utyupadharaya, Sarvani Utyupadharaya, Aham Kritsnasya Jagataha, Aham Kritsnasya Jagataha, Prabhavav Pralayastatha, Prabhavav Pralayastatha. Number 7. Mattaf Parataram Nanyat, Mattaf Parataram Nanyat, Kinchidasti Dhananjaya, Kinchidasti Dhananjaya, Mai Sarvamidam Protam, Mai Sarvamidam Protam, Sutre Manigana Iva, Sutre Manigana Iva, Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya, Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayoho, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayoho, Pranavav Sarva Vedeshu, Sarva Vedeshu, Shabdakhe Paurusham Rishu, Shabdakhe Paurusham Rishu, Punyo Gandha Prithivyancha, punyo gandhah prithivyanch tejaschasmi vibhavasau tejaschasmi vibhavasau jivanam sarvabhuteshu Jivanam sarvabhuteshu tapaschasmi tapasvisu tapaschasmi tapasvisu. Right. Right. So in the section of the Gita, which is the 6th through the 12th chapters, as you know, as a revision, the focus is Ishvara. In the 1st through the 6th chapter, the focus was the Jiva, the human being, the individual. And here, the focus is the Ishvara. And in view of that, we saw last time that the one's appreciation of Ishvara, God, can take into 3 forms. And in fact, I've just added a 4th one today because that was obvious. So these stages of the appreciation of Ishvara, recognition of Ishvara, the importance of Ishvara in one's life, depends upon the spiritual maturity, if we can coin a word like that, a spiritual maturity. So maturity in the normal life means that you are able to have some wisdom about approaching your life. You don't fly off the handle, and you don't take things seriously that don't need your serious approach. You take things seriously that do need your approach. All of those kinds of things is what constitutes maturity. And really the first maturity that happens is physical maturity. You don't have to do very much about it. You just eat. And so pretty soon the baby becomes a toddler becomes a young person. Like that, there is a physical maturity that ends around 18, 19, something like that. The mental maturity about your approaches in life depends upon lots of factors, your parents, your teachers, your own personality, but you become slowly mature and you start to deal with life's problems and to be able to take care of them. We know all of that, there's nothing. But there's also a thing called spiritual maturity, which is neither physical nor not the worldly, but something more than that. And that is what we are talking about. The spiritual maturity, not religious maturity. There's no such thing as a religious maturity. Because religious maturity is also part of your own worldly maturity. But spiritual maturity has some structure to it, has some stages to it. And so we should look into that. What are the stages? So the first stage is that I don't know anything about Ishvara and I don't care. I have some people that help me and I have some things that I want to do. These are the things that I care about. I've chosen a profession, I have a family, all those kinds of things. Those are the things that are important to me. I don't know where Ishvara is, and I have no idea. And why should I bother about it? This is one of the things they often say sometimes, is that people say that I don't care much about God or Ishvara, I just want to be a good person. Isn't that important, to be a good person? Yes, it's important. So there, matter is rest, so there is no need to inquire. Lots of discussions on that, but that's basically, I just want to summarize and say that the first stage is that there is nothing important to me. Then, for whatever reason, something comes into you where you are open to discussing the concept of God. And at least you're open. So this is the second stage. And in this stage, there are lots of reasons for it. Lots of reasons for it. One reason could be that you are having problems in your life and none of our local support is really able to help you. You are somewhat frustrated and you ask for help. And so you are now saying, okay, I've done everything else. Maybe I should look into God as a possibility of help to me. Maybe. This is what they say. They say that it is better that you actually believe in God, because if you don't believe in God, then you have lots to lose. And if you believe in God, you have nothing to lose, because supposing if the God is there and you don't believe in it, then chances are that you miss the boat. And so you might as well just believe in it just for the heck of it. Anyway, that's just a separate point. That's not the main point. For whatever reason, we find that we open our hearts to an understanding of maybe there is some God. And so on. So this is the second stage. In this stage, you tend to look upon God as a single individual. So this is what is called Ekarupa Darshanam. Ekarup means singles, one rupam, has one quality. And it could be Christ, it could be Krishna, it could be Muhammad, it could be any one of the different ones. But there's something that appeals to you. And within Hinduism we have lots of different forms of God, Devis, Hanuman, and then Krishna, Radha Krishna, or you can go to Ganesha temples. But anyway, something where you believe in it and you collect the entire idea of God into this one thing. And of course, Hinduism does a very good job of that, more than anyone else, that we actually provide you with some kind of a form that you can go to and then just believe in it. So this is the one that is the next stage. So here what we say is that this has two problems. One is that a belief is a major part of this commitment, not knowledge. Knowledge hasn't entered the picture yet. It is really your own shraddha, your own belief into this one form of God. And that's very vulnerable. Very vulnerable. Swami Maheshananji was pointing out that there was just as one example, he says that I had a person who was very devoted to me, and he was just always going temple goer and so on, and very, very religious in India, and his young son died. And the death of a child is one of the worst things that can happen in one's life, really. Because why am I alive when my younger one is dead? This is a very, very difficult thing. So he says what this guy did was he took out all of the idols from his home and just threw it out and ran over them. He says, I don't believe in God anymore. How can he do this to me? I have been praying all my life and so on, and to take my son away from him. And he became an absolutely angry person and so on and so forth. He says, I've seen this in my life, where people can just lose that. And so one of them is that it's a very vulnerable stage. The second stage is that if you do have a darshanam, darshanam means to have some kind of a vision, that also comes and goes. You're not sure of it. You can go to a pilgrimage. I've seen people, my mother used to say that. She says, whenever I go to this temple, I feel the presence of God. But what does that mean? That when you come back, this is exactly what it means. When you come back from the temple, the vision of God is lost. So it all comes and goes. It's very uncertain and so on. So this stage where you look upon God as a person is better than not doing anything. But it has its own problems, and it really doesn't solve really most of your problems. Then comes the next stage. And this is the stage we are now embarking on in the 7th chapter, as we will see today in more detail. And in this stage, it is not a single individual. Did I write it down? I think I neglected to. I meant to do this. This is what is called Aneka Rupa Darshanam, not Eka Rupa Darshanam. In Sanskritam, called Aneka Rupa Darshanam. Aneka Rupa Darshanam means, and in fact, this is what is called, I really neglected to say that. That's an important thing I wanted to say. Yeah. Anyway, I'll add to it, and unfortunately I cannot write on it because this is all Word document which is not cast. So I'm still, Raj is helping me to do all of that. I'll be able to do it hopefully next time. But another word for Aneka Rupa Darshanam is Vishwarupa Darshanam. Vishwarupa Darshanam. Vishwarupa Darshanam means, in English, that my idea of God is not a person sitting in temples or churches, but present everywhere. Which is really the truth. I just didn't see the truth, therefore I had to rely on something which was convenient, and what else do you want me to do? You cannot tell somebody you're so immature. Maturity is something for us to revolve to. You cannot blame someone. You can tell someone that this is not a mature attitude. But maturity is something we have to deserve on our own. It's slow. It doesn't happen overnight. Anyway, the next stage is, and this stage, this is an important thing. In this stage, in the third stage, I have to introduce knowledge, not belief. Knowledge is an important thing. Later on in the 9th chapter, this is why I was speaking to see. In the 9th chapter, it points out, all this will come in the discussion of God, because the subject is Ishvara, the Swarupa of Ishvara, that is the subject. In the subject of the Swarupa of Ishvara, one of the things we have to see is that I cannot develop a love for someone unless I know the person. You cannot have an appreciation or a commitment or reverence or love, those kinds of words, which are attitudinal. And verse number 9 actually goes into it much more directly into it. But the theme is the same, that you cannot develop reverence unless you know someone. Because just to say, please, here's a person, you start loving him, or you really start becoming friendly to him. Hey, how can I do that? You cannot do that. Swami Dayanand used to give this very beautiful example. This was very famous for it. He says, you're all very, you all respect me, don't you? So the students are saying, yeah, we respect to a certain point. He says, okay, here, do this. He says, I have Gagabugain in my, that's the word he used to use, so much so that we began to know Gagabugain. Really. He says, I have Gagabugain in my hand, and I would like to get $25 for this. I think he used to say 15. Now because of inflation I made it 25. So he says, please give me 25. What will you do? Now, you know what you'll do? You'll say, just because he's asking, well, you might as well give 25. You start looking for $20 bill and a $5 bill. But you don't have any conviction. Well, what is it? What is it? No, I cannot tell you what it is, but you just give me 20. Okay, fine, I'll give you 25. But I can give you 25 if I describe a book which is so well written that I describe it and you know it, and then you say, yeah, I think I'd like to buy it. This is the thing. So really speaking, what it means is, I cannot appreciate God unless I get to know Him. How can I appreciate God? So really the third stage, which is what we are involved in at this point, is to see the knowledge of Vishwarupa Darshana. This is what this chapter is all about. And so here, the appreciation of God as the cause of the entire creation, the presence in the entire creation, means that slowly my belief morphs into understanding. This is what happens. And later on, I won't go into, I'll just cheat a little bit to say, is one interesting thing that Swami Paramarthananda pointed out. He said, there's another stage to this that happens. And that is that the introduction of the knowledge about God is just the beginning. Just the beginning. It takes a while for the love to develop. And he gave a very beautiful example. He says, eating food is not very useful. Even if you're hungry, it might quench your thirst or hunger immediately. There's a certain pain in you're hungry. So the hunger pain is there. So that one you can do. But eating really is not useful until you digest it. Digestion is, and in fact this is what happens sometimes, that if you miseat or something, you can throw it out, even though it has become part of your body, but hasn't really become digested yet, and for whatever reason you can vomit it out. Nothing has happened yet. But the digestion takes a while. And as our Shastras point out, that the food that you eat, this is not relevant to this study, but just since I'm mentioning it, I might as well say that the food that you eat has 3 parts to it. One is a part that you are supposed to throw out, and you do with the natural elimination. The second part, so this is what is called sthula sharira. So the second part would be where it becomes useful for your body as muscles, as blood, as all the various parts of the body. Important part of the body. That's the second part. The third part is sattvic, that goes into improving your mind. And if you eat the wrong kind of food, your mind also becomes not the right kind, etc. Anyway, so that's a separate one. Anyways, going back to it, the appreciation of God just by the introduction through the study of the Bhagavad Gita is just like eating. Hasn't done anything yet. You now have to digest it. You have to slowly see the presence of God and develop appreciation and love for it, which will take time. But that is spiritual maturity. That's what you have to do. That stage also is not the final stage. Then the final stage is the appreciation of God as yourself. No difference. And what that means is that your status as an individual is false. It is really God alone that is you working through all of your situations. There's only one thing, which is, so in some way it's interesting, Eka Rupa Darshanam becomes Aneka Rupa Darshanam, becomes Eka Rupa Darshanam again, but in a different way. Anyway, so this is the stages of the appreciation of, and this is still a kind of like a revision from last time, just some further commentary. Okay, now let us go to verse number 7. And I have to tell you, I am very nostalgic about this verse. My introduction to Vedanta started with this verse. I still remember it was June of 1973 when Swami Chinmanand in the Lone Mountain College in San Francisco, which is no longer called Lone Mountain College. It's there's a church there, and he taught the 7th chapter of the Gita. And it was this verse that really kind of captured my imagination. So I'm very partial to it when I see this. This is a great thing after all these years. So the 7th chapter, it says, Mattaf parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. So as you know, the English translation of that is, Hey Dhananjaya, means Hey Arjuna. That is a epithet for Arjuna. He says, there is no other cause superior to me all this is woven in me like the beads in a rosary. This is the meaning of it. Okay, so let's analyze this verse. So what we find in our life is that everything that begins has a cause. Everything has a cause. So in our case, you see that, you look at it this way, as a human being, my parents are my cause. And they are also there as people, so they had a cause, which is the grandparents. And so on and so on, there is a kind of a chain that occurs. Everything has a cause. So the question is, shouldn't God also have a cause? If you are saying that God is a person and has some function, form, relationships, etc., something, he's a real person. Fine, I agree with that. The question is, what is the cause of this person? Okay, who is the cause? So here the verse number 7 says, there is no cause for me. I am a causeless cause. How that is possible we will see in more detail later on. But at least we might as well tell you the facts. I do not have a cause, no parents. And I am in fact in the two prakritis that we described last time, para prakriti and apara prakriti, the higher nature and the lower nature. I don't have that, and I should be able to go back and forth to the last one. But this is anadi. There is no beginning. And we were discussing this in the earlier class also, so I don't think there's any other than Chandra maybe and Lychee. I think those two were there. So some repetition. What we were discussing earlier was, this is an interesting thing, an important thing to see, that the whole creation is in the form of circles. The creation itself is a circle. And everything in the creation is also a circle. So as you know, one very common thing to know, even the modern science is now discovering it, that what you see to be a solid surface is really nothing but an infinite number of circles of electrons and protons just moving around each other. That's what it is. This solidity is just a byproduct. But really speaking, everything is nothing but in perpetual motion. Human being also is the same way. We think of ourselves as a line, but in fact we go back to another life, and we go back and come back again. Another life, come back. It's a circle. The whole thing is nothing but made out of circles. So the moon rotates around the earth as a circle. The earth rotates around the sun as a circle. The sun is probably rotating around something as a circle. The whole galaxy is moving around in a circle. And the reason for that is, you do not have a beginning for the circle. A line has a beginning, but a circle doesn't have a beginning. And the whole prakriti, the whole creation is nothing but a circle. 50 million years of Brahmaji's day, 50 million years of Brahmaji's night, back again to a day. Same thing with you and I. We were asleep last night, we are awake today. Again we'll be sleeping. Circle. So really speaking, God has no beginning. It is a beginningless circle. It is the very presence, the very body of the God, which is what we are studying, which is present, always present. It never began. It was always there in various forms. And the contents also keep circling. Doesn't mean there's no changes. Changes are possible. But the changes are infinite, which are all in the form of circles moving around. So therefore speaking, God says that I do not have I am the only one. I think I say that here. The buck really stops with me. Buck stops with me. Literally stops with me. And I tell you, this is an interesting thing to see. When Swami Dayanandji had explained this, it's really made a lot of sense. Now we see it being discussed. So, so what it says is this. If all your experiences had a cause, it would be an infinite loop. It would never, even though it's a circle, but nothing will get resolved. Because I'm waiting to see what my cause was. Okay, I found out what my cause is. Now I'm waiting to see what the cause of the cause is. And this is exactly what happens. This is, this is now the modern medical science, interesting debate that's going on, which is, if you knew all the genetic problems you're having, you should really look into all of that. There are tests being given to you and so on and so forth. And you can go into a big loop. How did that happen? Who gave it to me? Where was I born? Ultimately, it's useless. You have to deal with your life as it is. If there are some issues, medical problems that fine, you can go. But to go into an infinite loop doesn't make any sense. So Ishvara says, listen, I am here now. And how you resolve into it doesn't matter. But the main thing is that I don't have a cause. I'm here. I'm a causeless person. Here's some technicalities. I want to actually spend a few minutes on both of them. What is called Parataram, Para, and Ishvara. Both of these are interesting words. So the word Para you should be very clear about as students of Vedanta. Param is an often used word. What does it mean? Param means one thing which is superior, higher, beyond, and as the cause. So the cause is always superior to the effect. So really clay is superior to the pots. Gold is superior to the ornaments. Why? Because the ornaments depend on it. The pots depend on the clay. And the clay is independent. So relatively speaking, clay is the param for the pots. So that's the meaning of the word param. Here, the word parataram is used. So parataram, taram, the taram pratyaya, the suffix called taram, means comparative. Means comparatively. So it says that there is, you almost like, you don't have to use param. You don't need to use taram. You can say param. So param would mean, I have no cause which is superior to me. In this sense, the word Ishvara is a very interesting one and an important one to understand. So let's look into that. By the way, this word ish should have a halanta, and I couldn't get it on in this software that I'm using. So if you are writing it down, so this those of you that know some Sanskrit, the way you write this would be called isha, but it's called ish is the verbal dhatu called ish. Ish means to be the boss. To be the boss. So here our acharyas all said that all of us are relative bosses. We are bosses to a certain point. So with respect to whether I should, in fact right now they were like, when we were doing the puja from these flowers, there's like 4 or 5 ants that are moving around here. They were just here, I don't know where they went. With respect to the ants, I'm the boss. Why? Because if they were bothering me, it's a good thing they were on the table. If they were on my body, I would probably kill them. Or I can let them go. I'm a total boss. But if my wife was sitting next to me, it's really clear I am not the boss. So all of us have relative bossism. For some people we are bosses, some people we are not. This varat pratyaya after ish, ishvara, means I am the absolute boss. So the varat pratyaya is used only when the nature of the person is nothing but the total boss. So for example, sun is called bhaswara. Bhaswara. Bhaswara means one whose nature is total light. Moon's nature is not total light, because it can be lighted by someone else, but one which is independently lighting is called bhaswara. So therefore the word Ishvara means one that does not have a boss. He is able to do this. Because you can see this very nice explanation by Swami Dayanandji. He says, suppose you were to, and I'm just repeating what I said earlier, the buck really stops with me, that supposing you say, I want to get this thing done. Can I do this? So the person says, I think so, but let me check with my boss. Okay, or I'll wait. Then that person goes to his boss or her boss and says, he's asking for this to be done. Should I give it to him? He says, I believe so, but let me check with my boss. You have an endless loop, and I want to get some things done. And there are people who are still checking with their bosses. Nothing can get done because it's an infinite loop. Ishvara says, just do it. Just do it. You don't have to ask. And in fact, sitting inside of you, this is what is called antaryami. Sitting inside of you, it says, do it. Do it. You don't have to ask anybody. And so this is the meaning of the word Ishvara, which is given in this very important verse. So, matta paratram nasti yatkinchit he dhananjaya. So this is the first part of it. Then we go to the second line of this verse, which is equally important and interesting. Mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. So there he says, listen, what a lovely example he gave. He says that if you look at a rosary of beads, I have this, this was given to me by Swami Dayanandji, back in 77. I've had it for what? 77 is 23 plus 19. 42 years. It hasn't broken. It's a Rudraksha mala. But if you look at these larger beads, especially sometimes the women have this mala that you're wearing and this beautiful set of beads that they have. The beads are strung together so well that it hides the thread that holds them together. So Ishvara says, this is all Ishvara's own words. Gita is nothing but Ishvara's own words. He says, please see that I am holding the whole world together. Like a string, you don't see me. But if the string should break, you can imagine what will happen to all the beads. They all get scattered. So the fact that they are not scattered, I was just thinking, for example, sometimes you can say, no, you don't have to have you don't have to have a string. You can glue them together. You glue all these beads together. That is not really a good, because it will be inflexible. You couldn't change it. Here, this is very nice. You can actually move it. You can do anything. I can take it off, put it back again. I can play with it. I can tell the beads if I want to. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I can do that. So a number of things you can do only because of the string holding all the beads together, isn't it? So similarly, and so the rest of the description will be how this is being done in verse number 8 and 9 and others. In fact, the whole Gita is on that. And so, just, we have limited time, but just to give you some idea, the way it is done, how Ishvara is holding the whole world together, is the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe. Like suppose if the string was not there. So imagine this, supposing you are supposing you are holding a rosary in your hand. And you drop the rosary on the ground. Supposing you do that. Supposing you take this mala and you drop it on the ground from 6 feet, 4 feet. If there is no string, the beads will all scatter randomly, wouldn't they? They all scatter. Or if the string should break, if they had a string and the string should break, they will all scatter. But if the mala, if the rosary were to have its string intact as it falls on the ground, it would still be a rosary that you can wear again, isn't it? Doesn't matter where it is, in what form it is, you can wear it. Same thing is true in the whole world. There are laws governing the creation, the sustenance, and the dissolution that are infallible. Take a very simple example. Laws are not random. It is not as though water boils at 100 degrees centigrade in the US, but in India it boils at 2000 degrees centigrade. In France it boils at 105 degrees. In Africa it boils down at 700 degrees. It doesn't happen. It's consistent, orderly, predictable, reliable. And if there are changes to it, if there is some unpredictability to it, it also has a predictable reason. Swami Maheshanji had given this example. He said, the first time we went on a pilgrimage to the higher altitudes of Himalayas, so these Mahatmas, they always have a couple of brahmacharis that go along with them, who take care of the food and so on and so forth. And so the food staple of India, as you know, is lentils, rice and lentils. If you get some vegetables, that's fine, but that is the staple food. So these Mahatmas, sadhus, they always have a bag full of lentils that they carry and some rice. And they go and whenever they find, they cook it. So he says, Swamiji says, the first time we went to, I don't know where he was, somewhere in Himalayas, it's 12, 13, 14,000 feet, is no problems. And so they went there, and they said, okay, we were very hungry, we had just come there, and the dal and the rice did not boil. They say, what's going on? I wouldn't understand this. So somebody explained to them, sir, at this height, it does not boil at 100 degrees centigrade. It boils at a higher degree, and you have to cook it for a hard time. Why? Because the altitude. So if there was nothing wrong with it, the laws were not understood. That's all. Similarly, this was the question that somebody asked at the earlier class, which is a normal question. What do we do with this political upheaval? And this person who has now become the president of the US, and people are afraid that the whole country which is happening actually, it's just amazing. All predictable. Predictable. In the eyes of Ishvara, this had to happen. It's just like it's not boiling because you are at a different altitude, that's all. Why? What is the predictability? We don't know. Ishvara knows. And one can see the predictability to a certain extent. That I think the immigration of the people, whatever the reasons are, I don't want to go into that, but people were getting very concerned that the country, the way it was evolving, was going in the wrong direction with immigration, and we were getting and so we need to correct it. We need to correct it, and we need to do it by force. And this is why this person got elected, because everybody was surprised, but the feeling was there that we need to do something drastic, and we are looking at it. So what is unpredictable is there has some predictable reasons for it. So anyway, the crux of it is that the presence of the string holding things together should be understood. The presence of Ishvara in everything should be understood. Holding things together through the laws. And these are physical laws, psychological laws. These are genetic laws. This is why you find even a person behaving irrationally. You have these dual personalities, the Jekyll and Hyde personality, and all kinds of psychological problems. And it can be explained by a person that knows the nature of the problems. You can go to a psychiatrist, and the good psychiatrists have their own problems. Did you know that the suicide rate is the highest among psychiatrists? Really, the ultimate psychiatry, if I can say that, is Vedanta. It's the ultimate psychiatry. Because your run-of-the-mill psychiatrist also is confused about your own nature. I'm just a human being, I've got problem. But relatively speaking, he has gone through some training and he can say, oh, I know why you're having this problem. Did you have a very strong father who used to really berate you? Yes, that's the reason. He's gone. Forget about him. So all those kind of things you can analyze, but all I'm saying is that the unpredictable things can also be made understandable in that sense. So these are the various laws. Yeah, so I think I pretty much said all these kinds of things. And so that is the meaning of this important verse. Mattaha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Sutre means the thread. It says money. Money means the various jewels that are strung together. So the whole world is like a jewel, but holding it together. See, I think that water example is a good one to keep in your mind. That we don't know, we are worried about the randomness of elections results, as though there is no order for it. This was not the right thing to be done. It is predictable. People behave in a certain manner, and you just have to deal with it and go on with it, and it will be okay. So I think that the whole world. So this is what I was going to say. That the unpredictability of some problems that we see is nothing compared to the predictability that already exists. That's the word. That's what I was trying to express. So the predictability of if there was complete unpredictability, the water will not all boil at the same temperature. No. It's complete randomness. And in every different phase there is order. We all have the same consciousness. If I'm talking to you, you are listening. Your listening ability and my talking ability also are all part of the same consciousness. It's all order, 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 order. Laws, 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 natural laws, natural laws. This is the presence of Ishvara that we have to it's really to appreciate. It's already there, we are, in some ways, supposing you are going on vacation in a nice place where you are visiting Disneyland or something with your children, and the children are having fun and so on, and they don't know who's paying for Disneyland, where the money comes from, who's supporting them. By the way, have you ever been to Disneyland lately? My gosh, my son and daughter-in-law took their two daughters and they had us also come along. That's about 5 years ago. I think we ended up spending like $150 per person per day. It's mind-blowing. When I came to this country, used to go to Disneyland, it was like $5.95 for the ticket. Anyway, so when you go to Disneyland, the children are having fun. They're not concerned about But the parents, they have to figure out, okay, this is how much money we have. I think we can pay for the hotel. And you cannot blame the children for not asking the question because they're not supposed to. They're to fun. Very similarly is the case. Right now we don't know who's in charge of the whole creation. How is it running? I have absolutely no idea. And we are like a child, spiritual child, children, really speaking. Who's behind? What are the laws? Who's paying for it? What is going to happen? What is the reason for things? All requires maturity and understanding. So this is the process that we are going through. Anyway, so this is, where are we? I think we can do, I might be able to do one more verse. Oh, yeah, one other thing. So the appreciation of the presence of Ishvara in the whole creation. Because you remember, one of the things we said was that we should understand, and this is Vedanta is really one of the unique aspects of looking at it. We don't see this being discussed very well. That Ishvara has both the Nimitta Karanam as well as Upadana Karanam, the intelligence and the material all within himself. This is entirely the body of Ishvara itself. So the appreciation of the appreciation, we are talking here about the appreciation of the body of Ishvara. Right? But in and through that is also how he works. What is his intent? What is going to happen to me? What is my future? What do I need to do? All of those things is the Nimitta Karanam. That's all the Nimitta Karanam analysis, which will come at different times. But at this point, we are seeing the Upadana Karanam, the material cause for it. And the material cause has two different aspects to it. One of them is saguna, and the other with qualities, and the other one is the very core of it, which is nirguna. The nirguna is the nimitta karanam, and saguna is the upadana karanam. And so my appreciation of Ishvara has to be with both aspects. And once I begin to develop a commitment, love, reverence, whatever you may call it, then the fourth stage that we talked about will be possible, which is to see Ishvara as nothing but my own self alone. Until that happens, my mind will not grasp it. It will be make-believe only. We can just do some japa, Om Namah Shivaya. Doesn't mean anything. And so both the core, which is non-manifest, and the swarupa, which is manifest, has to be understood. And it's a gradual process of seeing how that happens. So this was the 7th verse. Now let us go to the 8th verse. And I think I've already talked about the 8th verse, but let's look at it. So it says, Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayoho pranavav sarva vedeshu shabdaha khe paurusham rishu. So looking at the English translation of that, He Kaunteya, Kuntiputra, Arjuna, I am the taste in the water. Raso aham apsu. Apsu means in the water. I am the taste. I'll explain this in a minute. I am the light in the moon and the sun. I am the Omkara in all the Vedas. I am the sound in the space, and I am the strength in human beings. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. Apsu raso aham. Prabha asmi shashi suryayoho. Shashi means the moon. That the moon and the light of the moon and the sun, I am. Pranavaha sarva vedeshu. The Omkara in all the Vedas, Om, is me alone. And the basic nature of sound, which is space, is also me. And Paurushayam Nishu, the strength and the humanness is in that also is due to me. So this is what he was saying. Okay, and then this is going to go on with this is what's called Vishwarupa Darshanam. Vishwarupa Darshanam means that where do I find the presence of Ishvara? So he's starting to describe it. Just describing. So this part I've already talked to you about this. I was talking earlier that unless you know it, you cannot develop a reverence. And so digesting and all that I think I talked about earlier. So this is all done. Okay. So here, one very interesting thing that I wanted to, I think I might as well point this out here. So let me just pause for a minute. And this was something that used to bother me a little bit. So in the description of all these things, I am the light of this, amongst the people I am this, I am. He will say this later on in the Bhagavad Gita, that amongst, like for example, amongst the Vedas, I am the Om. Let's take an example of that. Okay, I am the Om in the Vedas. Okay, let's take an example of that. It used to bother me that are you saying I am not in the rest of the Vedas? I'm only in the Om here? And so on in the other chapters he's going to describe, out of these I am this, out of these I am this. So are you just saying you are only that, not the whole thing? This was clarified by Swami Maheshananda one time, and the whole thing became clear to me. What he said was that suppose you look at a human form. In the human form, you have a number of things. You have the basic stem, you have hands, you have the back, etc. You have this whole thing. And you also have a face. So he says, tell me, when we identify people, do we ever show their backs to you? You know, supposing you go to a place where they have these photographs of people. Supposing they are photographs of their backs, how will that really help you? Is it not the truth? It is the truth. They're not lying. But guess what? it does not have the distinguishing feature that allows you to see things very clearly, which is the face. Ishvara has made this face in such a way that you can look at each other and says, oh, that person is not here today, very easily. If you're all sitting there with your backs and I don't see your faces, I could not tell who's here, who is not there. Maybe I can guess a little bit. This was a great. So what he's saying is, when Ishvara says that I am the Omkara in the Vedas, it doesn't mean that I am not the Vedas, but I am the face of the Vedas. Beautiful. My doubts got resolved. In fact, Ishvara is everywhere, but there are certain features that he says, see me very clearly. And so he describes that. And I think what we might do is probably postpone some of this. I will get into it in the class next time, especially the Omkara. And so, for example, I can just do one thing now. Just take this rasa. Rasa as the very taste of the water, as an example, which is this one here. So if you just look at that. So, if you look at water and you drink the water, there are two ways of looking at it. One is, this is just water. No big deal. It's a big deal. Try living without the water. Just try it. Especially if you're lost in the middle of a desert. Or you're in the middle of the ocean. That to me is just an amazing thing. That you're lost in the ocean but you cannot drink. I think one of these days I need to really understand why Ishvara made this into salty ocean. Undrinkable. Anyway, that's a separate issue. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure about it. But water is the presence of Ishvara that is keeping you alive. And if you are lucky enough to live in an area where water is relatively pure, it is the best tasting drink you can have. Nothing like it. Even if you're not thirsty. The very taste of water. If there is a wrong taste, it is not because of the water. The intrinsic taste of water is madhura. It's very pleasant. And Ishvara says, listen, you think it's an accident? You think that water is an accident? Who created that? You think that the pleasant taste of water is an accident? You don't need to really look at Ishvara anywhere else except when you drink water. As an example. So it all depends upon your spiritual maturity. You can look upon this as, oh, what's the big deal? Bottled water. It's a big deal. Especially if you begin to see that you will not be alive if the water was not there in your body. You will not be alive if the water was not available for you to drink. This is the same thing is true for all aspects of yourself. Vayu. Look at the air, the oxygen coming into your lungs. You'll not be alive if it was not there. And we go around saying, where is Ishvara, where is Ishvara, where is Ishvara? Where is Ishvara not? Try that, you won't be able to be successful. It is all a matter of my own maturity. Not because Ishvara is absent. I just don't see him. This is the problem. And it is not, I should be excused for not seeing him because that's just a start. This is the description of the Vishwarupa Darshanam that the 7th chapter is presenting in front of us. And it's always introduction first, then thinking about it, and then developing a reverence for it. That changes my life. And so with that, there are other aspects of this verse, number 8, which we'll have to develop next time because I'm running out of time, but we will go through that. So I think there will be cases where I'll stop and go into more detail of the verses, and there will be cases where I will take only groups of verses and not go into as much detail. So we'll see how that goes conceptually, but it'll be an interesting journey. Okay, so I'll stop and then allow some time for questions. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Questions? Yeah.
We see, with all this knowledge, we end up seeing Ishvara in ourselves. That's what the state.
So that's the Nirguna. Yeah, so the Ishvara in yourself is the final stage. That's the 4th stage. But the 3rd stage that we were discussing is to see Ishvara in really everything, including me. So my own body and how it is kept together, that's also a part of Ishvara's creation. But that is all part of the Saguna Brahman.
So what we see in the part of Ishvara in us is the Nirguna part?
No, so the Ishvara's presence in your body is the Saguna part. But the consciousness itself is the Nirguna part. Yeah.
So when we say that we get a good smell of, say, a fragrance, then we
Correct.
say we can appreciate the God
Correct.
or Ishvara in that. Say, for example, if we have a bad experience or a bad, so is Ishvara present in
Yes,
that
yes,
also?
very much so, absolutely. So that means that the factors that you are experiencing were in such a way that it was not pleasant for you. So, for example, this is why our waste products, see, one can say that the waste products of the human brain, the urine and the feces, doesn't smell good. For humans now. For animals, they may be different, they have a different way of looking at it. But if you're looking at it from a human standpoint, what is something that should be eaten should be pleasant tasting. What should be eliminated is bad tasting. So both the bad and the good make sense in that manner. So yeah, really everything is Ishvara, not just the pleasant part of it. Yeah, sorry, Ashok.
You know, you shared that some people recognize or turn to God
Yes.
when they cannot solve the problems.
Yes,
So in that, may I share a light-hearted moment?
sure.
I just heard it yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. नास्तिक का हुआ विवाह,
Okay.
तब से जप रहा है ओम नमः शिवाय.
Ashok gives this, he says that there is in Hindi saying, he says that the person who does not believe in God got married, and then from that point on he started singing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Actually, this is a very interesting thing that you say, because in there is in Greek philosophy, no, not Greek philosophy, in the Greek mythology also, there was a person that would go to a kind of a holy man and ask him, he says, "Sir, should I get married or not?" He says, "By certain get married, absolutely. Because if you have a happy marriage, you'll have a happy marriage. If you have an unhappy marriage, you will discover God." So it's the same thing. Exactly.
Can you say you said Nastika something?
नास्तिक का हुआ विवाह.
Vivah means marriage.
Marriage. Nastik means non-believer.
Oh, this is in Hindi?
Yes.
Actually, even I thought this sounds good, but it's not. Nastik ka huwa vivaha.
All right. It looks like everybody is in a good mood, so now we can quit.
There's no class next.
So there's no class next week. I won't be here. I'm traveling. And then the following week, I forgot to actually, I'll remind everybody in an email, we'll have a special class for the new year. And I think you'll find it very useful. I'm working towards making a plan for it. And we will have it, I think, 9:30 to 11 o'clock is what I said. And what we're going to do, I found a section in the Panchadashi which I found to be very useful. And that section is useful for calibrating our life. In a way, what we did today was very similar to that, where you can say the first stage is non-understanding of Ishvara, don't care. That's also calibration of some kind. You can say, where am I in that process? But this one goes into much more detail. And so there are 7 steps to understanding myself and Ishvara. What are those 7 steps, and where am I in the 7 steps? All of that has to be seen. So what we will do is we'll have a longer session, maybe an hour and a half or so, of because it's going to take me some time to do so. And I'm also developing a written article based on this, which I will send it to you either beforehand or after. I haven't decided yet. I'm still working on it. So you can, this is about an 8 or 10 page article that goes into more detail of it. But I think we will begin the new year with an understanding of, and this will be common to all the classes, so maybe a little crowded, but I think we'll have enough crowd. I won't send it to people who are not regular students, so because of lack of space. So I'll see you on the 4th, I think,
Yes.
right? Then our regular will begin on the 11th of January. Okay?